Annabelle was a beautiful lady. With a strong love for money, she believed wealth was the ultimate goal in life and was willing to do anything to achieve it. Annabelle was, I would rather cry in a marshal than laugh in a trench. Born to humble parents in the bustling city of Lagos, Nigeria, she had always been fascinated by the luxury and glamour she saw on social media. From a young age, Annabelle had dreams of living the good life, one filled with expensive clothes, exotic vacations, and a house that would make people stop and stay. The problem was that her family was far from wealthy. Her father, Mr. Adebayo, worked as a carpenter, earning just enough to put food on the table. Her mother, Mrs. Adebayo, sold vegetables in the market, waking up as early as 4 a.m. every day to support the family. Despite their hard work, life was a constant struggle. Annabelle, however, had no intention of living the same life of struggle as her parents. She wanted more, much more. By the time she turned 20, she had joined a cycle of friends who introduced her to the world of hookup. Annabelle did not see it as wrong. To her, it was a business transaction. Male wanted companionship, and she wanted money. But she had a peculiar rule. She avoided young male entirely. She only entertained older, wealthy men who could spoil her with money, gifts, and vacations. Her friends, Tola and Cynthia, share the same ideology. Together, they spend their nights hopping from one nightclub to another, searching for sugar daddies willing to pay the price for their company. These men drove the latest cars and lived in the kind of houses Annabelle dreamt of. Every night was an adventure, and every adventure came with a reward. But despite her glamorous lifestyle, Annabelle's parents were not blind, so what was going on? Whenever she visited their modest home, they would plead with her to change her ways. "Annabelle, this path you are taking will not end well," her mother said one evening, tears in her eyes. "Listen to your mother," her father added. "Money is not everything." But Annabelle always dismissed them with a smile. "Do not worry, Mama. One day I will buy you a big house," she replied, rushing off their concerns, as if they were mere complaints from people who did not understand her vision. One evening, after a particular lavish weekend in Abuja with one of her sugar daddies, Annabelle returned home to see her mother. Waiting by the door, she had a worried look on her face. "Annabelle, we need to talk," her mother said, pulling her inside. "Mama, what is it now?" Annabelle asked, already tired of the usual letters. "Mrs. Adebayo's son. Do you know Mrs. Chika from the market? Her daughter Bibi was found dead in a hotel last week. She was doing the same thing you are doing now." Annabelle has skipped a bit, but she quickly masks her fear. "Mama, that will not happen to me," she said firmly. "I am careful. I only deal with respectable men." Her mother shook her head. "No man who pays for a woman's body is responsible, my daughter. Please, I am begging you, live this life before it is too late." But Annabelle was too deep into the lifestyle to stop. The money was too good, and the idea of going back to struggling was unbearable. One fateful night, Annabelle and her friends decided to attend an exclusive party in Lekki. It was rumored that some of the wealthiest men in Lagos would be there. Annabelle dressed in a sparkly gold gown that hugged her curves perfectly. She knew she looked stunning, and the confidence in her stature made heads turn as she entered the mansion. At the party, she caught the attention of a man named Chief Okui. He was in his late 50s with a pot belly and a golden wristwatch that gleamed under the lights. He did not waste time approaching her. "You are the most beautiful woman I have seen tonight," he said, flashing a smile. Annabelle giggled. "Thank you, Chief." They spent the evening talking, and by the end of the night, Chief Okui handed her a bundle of cash and promised to take her on a trip to Dubai. Annabelle could not believe her luck. This was exactly the kind of opportunity she had ever been waiting for. However, as she left the party that night, she was very happy. One fateful afternoon, Annabelle's car broke down on the way to a friend's house. As she waited by the roadside, finding her safe under the scorching Lagos sun, a sleek black SUV pulled up beside her. The tinted windows rolled down to reveal an older man with an air of confidence and a kind smile. "Hello, beautiful lady," he said. His voice was smooth and calm. "Having car trouble, can I give you a lift?" Annabelle hesitated for a moment. The mass-polished appearance and his luxurious car caught her attention, but apparent warning echoed in her mind. See, her love for wealth overrode her caution. She smiled back. "Sure," she replied, signaling to the mechanic. "I will call you to bring the car to my house when you are done fixing it." The man stepped out and opened the door for her. As she slid into the plush leather seat, she could not help but admire the car's interior. the smell of expensive culottes and sausages. "I am Thomas," he introduced himself, extending his hand. "Annabelle," she replied, shaking his hand softly. Thomas smiled, revealing a perfect set of white peaks. A beautiful name for a beautiful woman. "What do you do, Annabelle?" "I am into business," she replied effortlessly. A skill she had mastered over the years. "And you?" "I am a businessman," he said. He stood proud yet humble. "Bring a stick?" "Mostly. I've got properties all over Lagos, Abuja, and even Dubai." Annabelle's ears popped up at the mention of Dubai. As the car glided smoothly through the busy streets, they chatted about their life. Thomas was charismatic and charming, the kind of man who could make anyone feel special. By the time he dropped her off at her apartment, Annabelle was already imagining herself in his world of wealth and luxury. Before she stepped out of the car, Thomas handed her a sleek black card, curving his head with a wink. "I would love to see you again." Annabelle felt the rush of excitement as she watched the SUV drove away. She heard the car tighten, already planning how to reel it in. Over the next few days, Annabelle and Thomas exchanged messages and phone calls. He was sweet, attentive, and generous. On their second meeting, he took her to a high-end restaurant in Victoria Island. The food was exquisite, the wine expensive, and Thomas made her feel like a queen. "You deserve the finer things in life, Annabelle," he said, looking deeply into her eyes. "A woman like you should never have to struggle." His words sent dreams through her. She felt like she had hit the jackpot, but something about him made her conscious. Thomas seemed too perfect, and Annabelle could not shake the feeling that he was hiding something. 2 weeks later, Thomas surprised Annabelle with a brand new iPhone and a weight of cash. "I want you to have this," he said as he handed her the gift. "You make me happy, and I believe in rewarding happiness." Annabelle was distressed. She tacked in repeatedly, her mind racing with thoughts of what more he could offer. She saw her dreams of living in luxury becoming a reality. The next day, Mr. Thomas called Annabelle and invited her to his mansion. Excited, she dressed in her best outfit, a fitted red dress that hugged her cuffs, and took a cab to his home in Ikoyi. The moment she arrived, she was carried away. The mansion was breathtaking. Goldy candles sparkled in the grand foyer. Marble floors reflected the soft glow of ambient lighting, and through the glass doors she could see a massive swimming pool. Shimmering under the evening sun, Mr. Thomas greeted her at the door. With his signature charming smile, he kissed her hand lightly and ushered her in. "Welcome to my humble abode," he said, a hint of pride in his voice. "This is far from humble," Angela replied, her eyes dancing around the luxurious space. She could not help but admire the paintings on the walls, the expensive furniture, and the air of Wales that surrounded her. They sat in the living room, which was just as opulent, with plush white couches and a grand piano in the corner. Mr. Thomas handed her a glass of wine and they began chatting. His charm was intoxicated, and Annabelle set herself free last night, enjoying his company. But then, out of nowhere, his tone changed, with a slight smile. He leaned back and said, "Annabelle, I need you to do something for me." She tied her hair, confused but intrigued. "What is it?" He took a sip of his wine, his eyes locked on hers. "I want you to sleep with my pet." Annabelle froze, unsure if she had heard him correctly. She let out a nervous laugh. "Your pet? What kind of pet?" "A chimpanzee," he replied, his expressions deadly serious. Her laughter died instantly. "Are you mad? I cannot do that." "Why would you even ask me? Such a thing." Mr. Thomas did not itch. He leaned forward, placing his glass on the table. $50,000, he said calmly. Amabe's mouth dropped open. The amount of money he mentioned set her head spinning. $50,000 was more than she could dream of, any in months, maybe even a year. Her initial shock turned to anger. "Do I look like some kind of animal?" she snapped. "Calm down," he said. "It's too soon to be fair. It's just 1 week and the money will change your life. You told me you wanted to live a luxurious life. Did not you? This is your chance." Amabe stood up, facing the room. "This is disgusting," she muttered to herself. "For $50,000 I could buy a new car, go on vacation and change my life. Am I raised with conflicting thoughts?" She wanted to run out of the mansion and never look back. But the halo of the morning held her back. It was the kind of opportunity she had always dreamed of. But at what cost? After what felt like an eternity, she turned to him. Annabelle finally gave in. Thomas led her to a bedroom near a large cage, sat in the corner. Inside was a massive chimpanzee, its dark eyes staring at her. He opened the cage, and the animal walked out. Annabelle's heart pounded. Her fear consumed her. The encounter was brutal and horrifying. Mr. Thomas sat on a chair, sipping wine and smiling cruelly as he watched. Annabelle endured the ordeal in silence, tears streaming down her face. When it was over, she lay on the bed, trembling and unable to move. "Good job," Mr. Thomas said, handing her a glass of wine. "You have met my expectations. Tomorrow is another day." Annabelle wanted to quit, but every time she thought of the money, she convinced herself to continue. For the next 6 days, she endured the unimaginable pain and humiliation, all for the promise of wealth. On the 7th day, Annabelle sat on the edge of the bed, staring blankly at the floor. Her body ached in ways she did not think were possible, and her soul felt shattered. The money no longer seemed worth it, but the thoughts of living without it made her stomach turn. She had gone too far. Turning back now was for nothing. He almost entered the room with his usual swag expression, holding a bag. "You have done well, my dear," he said, placing the bag on the table. "Here is your reward." Annabelle breathed a sigh of relief, and she opened the bag to reveal the bundles of cash. Her mind raced with possibilities. She could buy a house, start a business, or even move abroad. Inside of the money, her mentally dulled her pain, but a nagging voice in the back of her mind whispered that something was not right. "Thank you," she said weakly, her voice barely audible. She was happy, but at the same time she was sad. She could not work properly. When she got home, she thought of going on vacation, buying a new car, and changing her wardrobe. Unknowing to her, she is about to face the most difficult time of her life. After 2 weeks, Annabelle discovered she was bleeding. At first, she thought it was just a minor thing. Since she bled for days non-stop, Annabelle visited several hospitals. Looking for solutions, they all tried their best, but the situation remained. Her friends visited her, asking her what was wrong. Annabelle opened up to them and told them what led to her situation. They suggested she visited a herbalist for spiritual cleansing. Annabelle did, but she was told there is no cure. Annabelle had sang, and the herbalist's word echoed in her ears, "No cure." She whispered, her voice barely audible, her heart trembling as she clutched the edges of the chair. The herbalist stared at her. He said, "Grim, whatever you have done, it has stirred your spirit. To something dark you must retrace your step, or this curse will consume you entirely." Annabelle left the herbalist's house. In the dance, the weight of his warning pressed heavily on her chest. Annabelle's glamorous life now felt like a great joke. The joy of spending her newfound wealth was overshadowed by the constant pain and fear of her deteriorating health. Back at her luxurious apartment, Annabelle sat on her couch, staring at the pile of shopping bags filled with designers' clothes and expensive jewelry. None of it brought her happiness anymore. Her body aching, her bleeding showed no sign of stopping. That night, she lay in bed, unable to sleep. Her mind kept drifting back to the week she had spent at Mr. Thomas's mansion. The horrifying memory of what she had endured replayed in her mind, each one more vivid than the last. By morning, Annabelle decided to confront Mr. Thomas. She needed answers. When she arrived at his mansion, she was shocked to find it deserted. The gates were locked, and the one bustling compound was eerily silent. She called his number, but it was no longer in service. Panic set in as she realized that Mr. Thomas had vanished without a trace. Thanks guys for watching this video. This is just episode 1. If you want to continue watching the next episode to find out Hello everyone. If you listened to this very end, it means you enjoyed this story. The only way you can support and encourage me right now is by subscribing to this channel. Please, this will go a long way for me. Thank you so much as you subscribe. Don't forget to turn on the notification button so that whenever I upload a new story, you will always be notified. Thank you once now. Gracias.